Have you ever wondered why the experts say the money is in the list? If you have ever listened to a podcast or watched a webinar and you've heard these big name people, these online celebrities talking about building an email list and how that makes them the most money, then you will absolutely want to listen to this episode. The founder and creator of Authority Engine, Ben Krueger, and I talk about how to build your list, why the money is really truly in this list, how to treat the people on your list, and even how to warm up a cold list that you haven't talked to in a long time. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Empowered Podcast. I'm honored to have Ben Krueger of Authority Engines on the show today, and this is one of those highly tactical episodes. So if you're looking to grow an email list or want to know the answer to why people say the money is in your email list and some of those things that you can do to turn your blog into a business, that's what I want to talk with Ben about today. So welcome to the show, Ben Krueger.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, Ellery. Absolutely thrilled to be here and always tickled to talk a little bit of internet marketing, podcasting, email marketing shop. So I'm really excited to roll up my sleeves and help everybody out however I can.
Well, I'm happy to tickle you.
That does not sound dirty at all.
I don't remember the last time someone said they were tickled to talk about internet marketing, but that works too. I'm tickled as well. We'll just have a tickle fest. Anyway, you're in Thailand right now. Is that right?
I am in northern Thailand in Chiang Mai. I'm living here for about the next 5 months, and there's actually a really cool expat community here of online business owners, people who are kind of working and living from their laptops, and some of them are kind of the types that are, trying to scrape by, making just enough to live on the beach and eat pad thai every day. And then there's also another community that's more like the serious business types that are running real legitimate worldwide businesses from their laptops and cell phones here. And it's a really, really cool and interesting community and fantastic way to kind of see more of the world. So that's what I'm all about over here.
Cool. Well, just out of curiosity, to just scrape by and live on the beach and eat noodles all the time, how much would somebody have to be bringing in from their internet business to be able to live in the exotic land of Thailand?
Not much. About, like, if you're going on the real low end, about $1,300 a month or $1,500 a month to cover all your expenses and live a pretty comfortable lifestyle with, a decent apartment, having a motorbike, and being able to kind of go and meet up with your friends for drinks and meals and that kind of stuff. So the cost of living here is incredibly low.
Wow. I think when I talked to, of course, I can't think of her name off the top of my head, but it was Miss Two Jits. She does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think she was in Thailand. And now that I think of it, I think it was also in the morning. I guess time zones are always going to be the same from here over there. And we could hear parrots and, all kinds of birds. I think she was sitting outside, and, it was just a beautiful time of year there. And it's kind of exciting to be able to sit in my, or stand, I'm standing, stand in my office here in Texas and be able to talk to somebody about internet marketing and making money online who is pretty much, almost exactly 24 hours away.
Yeah, quite exactly. We're on a 12-hour time difference. So as far as time zones go, we're on the other side of the world, baby.
Not 24. 12, there you go. My
travel.
My math. Exactly. I guess Australia is the 24. They're in the future,
they're crazy,
not Thailand. So Ben, you and I had the chance, and I didn't even realize who you were when we were doing crazy stuff at the House of Blues during podcast movement, and I looked you up, or I found a video, and I was like, hey, I know that guy, and I just very interested in what you are doing online. You have built a site. It should be authorityengines.com, right? Or is it engine singular.com?
Singular. So authorityengine.com is my personal brand. That's where I put out all my content. I've got a podcast, a weekly podcast where I talk about using podcasting as a marketing tool to grow your business. As well as I do some really helpful, like short video tips. I call it Authority Engine TV. And then the true core business of what I do is smallbusinesspodcasting.com, which is a complete done for you service for folks who want to start a podcast for their business to grow their brand. We actually do the whole process for them. And then we do all of the back-end production, podcast editing, show notes writing, all that kind of stuff so that you as the podcast host and business owner can focus on creating the content and running your business. And we manage, produce, and then syndicate the podcast for you.
Just a random question for you, Ben. On a scale of 1 to 10, how good is a podcast if you're wanting to start or grow a small business?
It's a really good question. It comes down to what are your goals. So specifically for people who are personality-based brands, people like coaches, consultants, authors, speakers, experts in their fields, membership site owners, that kind of thing, it is absolutely fantastic for building that initial membership, building that relationship in your industry, and positioning yourself as an authority. So I'm obviously a big fan of podcasting, and there's those that it works fantastically for. And there's, of course, those that it might not be the best tool for them. But specifically for those personality-based brands, I've found podcasting to be, to be incredibly successful and work fantastically.
So like a full-on 10 out of 10 or 7?
Oh yeah, I didn't even give it a rating. Oh man, I would say 9 out of 10. Because there is no magic solution to anything. So I would hesitate to give it a 10, but it works absolute wonders, and so I'm gonna go with a really solid like 9.5 out of 10.
Awesome. Now, when it comes to building authority, and on my blog and podcast, I've talked about and written about how blogging is a fantastic way to build a brand and establish yourself as an authority, as well as podcasting, as it gives an insight into the way you think, and it removes a lot of those barriers that might keep a potential customer from becoming an actual customer. Mm-hmm. If you had to break it down into some of the top ways that you can build, or the listener can build authority on their blog, maybe they're just starting out, where should they start?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. The very first thing, and this is something that I find most people skip, is kind of two-part. Number one is to sit down and think, 2 years from now, where do I want my online presence to be? What is the whole purpose that I'm looking to serve here? Because a lot of people seem to kind of skip that part and don't really have that long-term game plan. And, of course, that shifts as you go, as you learn more, as you kind of get feedback from your audience. But for yourself, you should have a general idea of what this looks like, 2 years down the road, so that you know what you're looking towards, and more specifically, who those target audience folks are that you are looking to help out with your blog content, with your podcast content, whatever kind of content you're creating. So I've called it a lucrative listener test, because obviously I help podcasters. So what it is, it's a 4-question test that I've broken down to help people figure out who is that exact target audience that I'm really working towards gathering and serving with my content, with my podcast, with my product, services, yada yada. So the gist of it is, number one, 2 years from now, Who is, and there's two different sets of questions. One, if you already have a business, you already have some customers, and two, if you don't quite have that product or service to sell yet, you're still kind of trying to figure that out. But the general idea is, number one, about 2 years from now, who is the type of person that I would personally be very gratified to help and aid in some way, whether that's with a product, service, coaching, mentorship, whatever. Number two is who would most benefit from what I have to offer. Again, whether that's expertise, whatever. Number three, who would be willing to pay the price that I want to set for this stuff. Because, especially if you're setting yourself up as a leader in the industry, you don't want to be competing on price necessarily. You want to find those who are more than willing to, pay for the value that you're willing to offer them. And kind of part two in that is who's going to buy from you over and over and over again. Because obviously those
that one.
Those are going to be
business.
Yeah, those are going to be some absolute winners. And then also kind of to tie into that, who is going to be most excited about what you share with them and be not only willing but excited to share it with their network. So kind of to build in a little bit of that virality to what you're doing and kind of the audience that you're targeting. So I've created this kind of lucrative listener test, and the exact questions I've got like a free PDF people can grab, and I can send you the link for that after this episode. But that's the general concept, is to get a really clear idea of who is going to be that best listener for the long term, and then that is who you're targeting for your blog audience, for your podcast audience, for your whatever audience.
Yeah, I like that, Ben, because those last two that you throw in there, it's who's going to be excited to do business with you, not just, oh man, I got to do business with Ben, or oh man, I got to do business with Ellery, and then also share it. Who's going to say, hey, they make the best hamburger in town, you got to go check it out, or they've got the best ebook or best podcast or blog. Those people are critical to any sort of growth. But I have to ask, because I see this, I'm in a Tribe Writers group on Facebook, and you've probably seen this question 100 times, just like I have been. But how do you figure out, do I go with ElleryWells.com or do I go with AuthorityEngine.com? You mentioned that was your brand. Mm-hmm. How did you go with that versus your name? What would you give to someone who's about to click buy on GoDaddy or something?
Yeah, it's a good question. Quite honestly, buy both. They're $10 a year. So,
that's a good answer.
Number one, get over yourself. Number two, what it comes down to really is, what are you looking to build? Are you looking to build a brand that is an asset separate from yourself? Or are you looking to build a personality brand to where you are the business? So there's a very clear distinction, because with a personality brand, like ElleryWells.com, if you get it to where, let's say you're doing, a couple $100,000 a year, and you get to the point where you've got a team that's doing most of the work on the back end, and maybe you're focusing on doing the sales and doing a lot of the content and kind of the outreach and the events and that kind of stuff, it's going to be pretty hard if you ever want to sell ElleryWells.com as a business. That's not going to work out so hot, because you are the business. So if you are looking to build a brand, a complete and separate brand and business, then you definitely want to go with a brand name of some sort. And that doesn't necessarily mean you have to sell, or that even needs to be your intention, but it's a little bit different whether it's personality or it's a industry-based brand.
Do you think that might be why, and I this has never even occurred to me, but do you think that might be why Michael has started the platform conference in his platform, membership site? Jeff Coynes has Tribe Writer, but they didn't, their blogs are under their own name. Do you think that might be why they started those side branded entities or businesses?
Well, I mean, that may be a piece of it, but I would really doubt that that's the focus. I think the part of the reason, especially for a community of some sort, is I think what they are doing when it has when it's not necessarily labeled with their name is they're turning the focus instead of on them and their expertise to the community itself and the expertise within the community. So it's kind of more turning that focus back on the membership as opposed to, I'm Michael Hyatt and without me, this whole thing implodes. So it's a little bit of a different mindset to where, yes, you can still be at the top, and yes, you can still be the one doing all the content marketing and all the events and all that kind of stuff. But I think the focus shifts a little bit when it's no longer, Michael's community, like Michael's pals that are looking to build a platform to, platform, and all the people in there help each other out. And it's kind of this community to where, with or without Michael, it's going to continue to thrive, even though, of course, there has to be some involvement by him and his whole team, but that's not the focus anymore.
Yeah, well, my online training course has, is all about expertise, and I didn't really think of it this way. I just thought of it more like I was titling an ebook or something, but turn your offline expertise into an online business, and it's kind of its own thing, its own product, and it could definitely grow and be an experts community. And whenever I started doing, I just 3 or 4 days ago, Ben, I held my first live event here in the Austin area.
Congrats.
And thank you. It went really well. I wish there had been more people, but don't we always all wish that? But I had my own domain, and I'm syndicating some blog content over there. Actually, it's more copy and paste. That's about as technical as it gets. Yeah. But I want that to be something that's outside of me. I want to be a part of it. I don't want to be necessarily the head of it. And so you gave me some things to think about there. Now, one of the questions I wanted to ask you, or did you get through all of the form? Pretty sure you did. But is there anything else that we need?
Well, okay. I mean, when it comes to building authority and building kind of that personal positioning, we could talk for days on just that subject. So there's a lot of moving pieces and there's a lot of aspects of it. But the initial two pieces is get really clear on what you want as an individual and as kind of for the future of what you're doing online, whether it's focused on you, whether it's focused on the business and the value that you're going to be able to provide with it, and who it is you serve. And of course, those two will shift and change and mold as you learn more about what you're doing online. But having a solid vision for that at the get-go is going to put you leaps and bounds in front of everybody else.
When it comes to URLs, .com or .net?
.com. I mean, and that's what everybody's used to. That's what everybody knows. I mean, either one will work. And quite honestly, I think that's such a there's a lot of little things that people get caught up on that are more or less excuses to not move forward.
What's the biggest excuse you hear, Ben?
The biggest one is I don't know if people will like what I have to offer. Or
no kidding.
I don't know if people will, value what I have. And the only way you can know that is to put it out there and see, actually ask people, do a couple case studies to figure out, okay, does this actually work? Do people really enjoy the content that I'm putting out there? Share it with a few close friends that are in your target market. If they're just your friends, they're not going to give you honest feedback. But if they're in your target market, that's going to be much more accurate to what you're trying to do. So really, when it comes down to a lot of these, I am not the kind of guy that's cruising around the forums debating this URL versus that URL or this podcast microphone versus that podcast microphone. I'm the guy that's like, just buy the damn microphone and get on with it. I don't know if I can swear on this podcast, but I'm much more of an 80-20. Like, if it's good enough, it's good enough. Let's keep rolling here.
Yeah, and I love that you said that, Ben. These forums that we're probably both a part of on Facebook and stuff. I guess we don't probably knock heads too much, because as long as you're in Thailand, you'll be posting at night, where I'm posting while you're sleeping too. But it's like, oh, do I need to get this microphone, or is Audacity or GarageBand the way to just start something and figure it out along the way?
And how many times have you seen those two exact debates like fly off the handle for 3 days, with people just like adding their little piece, and then it turns into 2 or 3 people just going back and forth for like a day. And you could,
and that's 3 days you could have been recording or writing or marketing, doing any number of things,
sitting on the beach for all I care.
Exactly. That'd be much more fun, hanging out in Thailand than, sitting in your little studio apartment in middle of nowhere, USA. Oh, well, do I put a dash in my name or add a middle initial? It doesn't matter. Yep. You can always move it later if you really wanted to. I did that. It's kind of a pain in the ass, but it's easy and doable. Mm-hmm. So just get started. Now, here's a question I want to ask you, Ben, because I've had people ask me this question, and I was working on a blog post on this one and the question I want to ask you here in a few minutes, but I thought, who better to ask than Mr. Authority Engine himself? Why do people say the money is in the list?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So with email and email marketing, the glory of email is that you have a captive audience. If I'm stating it bluntly, with things like blogging and podcasting and other forms of content marketing, you can put out content, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it will reach all of your audience. And it doesn't. And you kind of have to, when you put out content, like you're putting it out publicly, and you cannot segment that to specific pieces of your audience. You can't. I mean, it's kind of you have to do it in a certain way, and there's no real workaround. Whereas with email, it can be much more intimate with your followership or your audience or whatever you want to call it. You can use email over time to automatically send them material. So obviously, one form of autoresponders is kind of that auto follow-up sequence when somebody signs up, to either give them the bonus that you offered them, or to kind of build a relationship with them over a couple days, couple weeks, couple months. But the true power with email is that you can always send an email directly to these folks' inbox, which is something that they check every day. They're not going to check your blog every day, but they're probably going to check their email inbox every day. They may or may not open up your email, but you can also send multiple emails with different subject lines, different content in the email that go back to the same resource. If you're linking to a new product that you're launching, or if you're linking to a blog content that you just came out with, podcast episode you just came out with, whatever it may be, it gives you so much more control and so much more direct connection with these folks than publishing something from like content from your site or content via iTunes or whatever. And it gives that relationship a much more one-to-one feel, because you're able to tailor email so much, as well as you can segment down email to very specific portions of your list using some specific tools, like whether it's Aweber or you're really all in and you're using something like Infusionsoft. You can segment out and only contact portions of your list. Let's say one person or one portion of your list opted in because they were interested in a specific product versus the rest of your email list opted in because they were just signing up to your newsletter. Obviously, those folks are going to have different intentions, and you can tailor your message to those folks based off of their actions and why they signed up to hear from you in the first place.
And just as you're listening to this out there, I should have clarified, when we're talking about lists and the money being in this list, we're not talking about Twitter lists or Facebook likes on your page. Mm-hmm. We're specifically talking about people who put in an email address on a sidebar, on a pop-up, or one of those scrolling things that fly in or something like that. That's what we're talking about. I should have made sure everybody was on the same page. That's what I was asking you about that. But so maybe all of this makes a little bit more sense when you're talking about a captive audience. It's real easy to click like on a page or follow on Twitter or +1 or whatever it is on these other networks. But it takes several keystrokes and a couple clicks to put in your email, and that's why Ben is saying it's a much more captivated audience. So, and Ben, I have just now in the last couple weeks probably started segmenting my list and having different opt-ins, and it becomes overwhelming. And this is what I do day in and day out, and it's still kind of overwhelming to me. Before I go into any more detail about how much it's confusing, Aweber versus MailChimp, a little bit of both. What is your preference there?
I used Aweber for a while and really liked it. And then I upgraded to Infusionsoft when I kind of made some transitions and needed to automate things beyond email. So with Infusionsoft, I can schedule follow-up calls with clients. I can schedule sending physical packages. I can schedule a whole bunch of different stuff and create these big campaigns versus just in email. But that's going to be beyond what most of your listeners need, I'm sure, at least to get started. So for me, I really liked Aweber because it was simple, it was straightforward, there wasn't anything complicated about it, and it just was easy. I ended up using both MailChimp and Aweber. Again, quite honestly, I think it's just pick one and go with it. Like, it's not going to make that big of a difference in your life until you've got a really big email list and you're using it all the time. And then by that time, you'll have outgrown both of those platforms anyways, and you'll want to upgrade to something else anyhow.
Yeah, that's why I recommend MailChimp. You get 2,000 subscribers for free. There'll be a link at empoweredpodcast.com. Just find this episode and all the links will be there. But because it's free, and that's 99% of it for me. Plus, I like the tool, but I think you're also right. You could spend a month doing the research, and can I do this? Should I go left or right or up or down? Just pick one and go with it, and you can always export your list to another one. You own that list, and that's another reason why people are saying that the money's in this list. Talk about how you're much more likely to get in front of your audience with email than some of these social platforms. Because, there's a billion plus people on Facebook. You can get likes or have, 5,000 friends in an email list of 30. What's the difference there? Why do we still want to focus on email in that situation when everybody's on Facebook, it seems?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So again, it comes down to you can do it's a more intimate messaging system. Like, if you receive an email from somebody, it's a little bit more of a them to you type of a thing, but also, and I think this is more along for the answer that you were kind of leaning towards, is with email, not only do you own that list for kind of the foreseeable future, but it just allows you to connect with these people on a one-on-one basis and you can use links to promote and sell whatever you're doing, or send them to content that you are offering. And an average email list gets somewhere between like I think like 20 to 30% open rate. Whereas if you post something up on Facebook, especially on like a Facebook group or whatever, I don't even know what the percentage is nowadays with Facebook, but it's really low, the amount of actual exposure to the people that even like your, because that's where I thought you were going with this. The people that actually even like your page, I think it's something like, I don't even know, like 6% tops, unless you have a super, super engaged Facebook page, unless you want to pay to sponsor that post. Because, Facebook is a public company. They're in it to make money now. And so their whole goal is going to move you towards paying to get exposure. So that whole free exposure via Facebook thing, that ship has a little bit sailed, or at least it's a lot more difficult to kind of do it from the free angle. But it's actually I'm actually a big fan that they've done this, because it opens up the doors for folks who understand the value of promoting certain posts to get certain results or certain actions from the listenership, or from the audience, which there's a lot less noise and there's a lot more direct communication. So if you're willing to spend the sponsorship dollars to get those results, if you kind of know the return on investment for what you're going to be doing, it makes a lot of sense and it works really well. But that's not a replacement for email. That is kind of a cherry on top.
Yeah, and when that's my big thing, Ben, is I didn't really focus on the email list for maybe 18 months or so.
Mm-hmm.
I just I didn't really understand why people said, what we're talking about, why people said the money is in the list. But let me give you, as a listener, let me give you just some numbers. I pulled up my MailChimp here, and in my email that went out today, so my podcast release on Wednesdays, it's been out about 8 hours. I have almost a 25% open rate. My email that went out for my blog post, and I've been blogging longer, Ben, than I've been podcasting. So a chunk of my audience subscribes for blog reasons. So where'd it go? Monday, I have a 38.8% open rate for that. Fantastic. When you're talking about Facebook, and I share something and it says 6 people saw this. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And I've got less than 200 likes on my page right now. I don't even push it anymore because I saw that little video you might have seen when that guy did all this research and said Facebook paying to get likes is kind of a scam because they all show up in Malaysia. Anyway, but that, when you're talking about 6 out of 190-ish, plus that's not even all of my friends and family and all the people who could potentially see it, but they just haven't liked my page yet. And I own the list, and it's going directly into an email list, 24 to 48. I had an autoresponder series. I went out to a smaller thing. It's kind of like, hey, here's who I am. That had a 66% open rate. And so my last week had 46, 48 for the blog. So there's a much larger percentage of your audience. And I have a question for you about this kind of thing, Ben. I've recently started taking the segment. I don't know if you could do this in Aweber. I'm pretty sure you could probably do it in Infusionsoft. But you can send to a segment of your list like you were saying, but you can filter by their rating, like who hasn't opened an email in a long time, or not that they have unsubscribed, but maybe they're going into Gmail's promotion tab or some of those other things, and they're just not seeing those emails. I've started sending only to people who have opened an email on a somewhat regular basis over the last 3 or 4 months. Good idea or bad idea?
I think that's a fantastic idea because quite literally, a lot of people get stuck up on some of these big picture numbers as kind of vanity metrics, and it really doesn't matter how many people you have on your email list. If only 6% of them open the dang email, you're not getting anywhere. Mm-hmm. But if you only had, like, let's say 10% of the size of that list and 60% of people opened that email, to me, that's even more valuable because your list is super targeted. They're engaged, they're opening your stuff. So I think that's absolutely brilliant. And quite honestly, I've seen some of the best marketers will make it very easy for you to unsubscribe from their list. Every once in a while, they'll send emails that say, at the very top, hey, if you're sick of hearing from me and, you aren't getting any value from this email list anymore, here's the unsubscribe button. Go ahead and do that. And partially it's because, the more email lists or the more emails you're sending out to, the more it's going to cost you as a marketer, but also because there's a little bit of the whole email deliverability thing. If you're sending out way more emails, Gmail is a little bit more likely to flag you as a spammer. So there's kind of always that balance there, but I think it's very smart to have the most targeted list possible. And kind of with what you're talking about, you're very much focused on those folks who take action, which, in my opinion, those are the folks that deserve your attention and your effort anyways.
That's a good point too. Now, do you think we need to start building an email list from the minute we get up online, the minute we've, bought our domain, installed WordPress, plugged in StudioPress or whatever? Do you think email is one of the first 5 things that we need to start doing when we're just starting out?
I think email is the second thing you should be doing when you start out.
All right, what's the first?
Well, I think the first is get clear on who the heck your target market is and what you're trying to serve them.
The 4 questions.
Yeah.
Before.
So get clear on who you're serving, and then the whole concept of email is. And, there's kind of the whole buzzword of value going around, but you want to make sure that if somebody's going to give you their email, it benefits them. It's not something that they do so that it allows you to market to them and annoy the crap out of them in their email inbox. You as a marketer have the responsibility of sending them things that they're actually going to be interested in, that are actually going to help them, aid them, benefit them in whatever journey or niche or expertise area that you're focused and that your target market wants to hear about. So not only is that your responsibility, but that is going to be vital to your success. So if you're gathering emails for a quote unquote newsletter, and all you do is blast them with like affiliate deals that pop on your lap that aren't really targeted to these folks, obviously you're going to obliterate that really quickly. But as you've said, Ellery, I think getting started with email and gathering emails right from the get-go is going to be one of the smartest moves you can make in the long run, because it's very much an exponential game, because once you figure it out, then it can grow leaps and bounds. But all that time to where you weren't gathering emails, all that opportunity has been lost forever.
That's so freaking true. I mean, all the things that I've learned or tried and learned that they didn't work for me. I mean, they work for other people. They don't work for me. Things that work for me don't work for other people. Sure. But if you wait for 6 months, you're sitting there like, what do I do? And then all of a sudden you've just wasted 6 months, and you're just now beginning this learning curve. A quick yes or no question for you, Ben. Should you build your email list before you have something to sell?
Absolutely. You don't need to necessarily sell something to that list right off the bat. Actually, one of the big benefits of having an email list is you can ask them what it is they want from you, and the challenges, the fears, the day-to-day issues that they're having that you can potentially solve with a product, service, membership, coaching, whatever.
Now, what about, and I just added in a second autoresponder, because part of my story, Ben, is, I didn't know what WordPress was when I started. Mm-hmm. I'd never heard of a podcast, even going back 2.5 years, or probably more like a year and a half. I didn't even know. I'd never heard the term before. And, it's me. This is my story. And if I'm doing it, you can do the exact same thing. I just added a second autoresponder where I go into a little bit more depth of being laid off, being fired, working for a company I didn't like, getting engaged during that process, and what it did to my future plans. Do you think that's a good thing? I haven't sent it out yet, so I don't have the statistics behind it yet, but I wanted to share more of my story so people could hopefully connect with that, good or bad.
I think that's fantastic, because the more human you are, the more people can relate and connect with you. Quite honestly, I think that's one of the reasons Pat Flynn does so well, is because he's just human. He shares a little bit of information about himself and about his personal life in every episode, and specifically because his target audience, similar to yours, are the folks that are just getting started, to where there's a lot of that mental fear buildup. There's a lot of that, well, I don't know if this will work. This whole world is completely and utterly new to me, and I don't quite understand how it works. It seems like it's so far off that I'm going to get any results from it. So I might as well just not even start. Whereas if they know, it's kind of that whole, if I did it, you can do it, but you have to make yourself relatable for that storyline to actually sink in. If you're Tony Robbins and you say, I did it, so can you, you're just like, okay, whatever, that's Tony Robbins, of course he can do it. People immediately dismiss it. Whereas if you say, hey, so, when I started this journey, I was laid off, and here's kind of the mental turmoil that I was going through. And if other folks can relate to that mental turmoil and that, kind of initial struggle to get started, and see that not only did you work through that, but now you are on your way to X, or you've achieved these milestones so far, and you're still working towards these things. It's just so much more relatable. That relationship you can build with them is so much more personal. So I'm all about
it. Good. I was kind of worried, like, is this too much? And I'm not like sharing like all the gory details or anything, but I did want to be relatable, and that's some of the feedback that I've gotten, is that I am relatable, and it's because for a long time I just stumbled along and want to share what I learned. And hopefully this is a quick answer. I don't know if it will be, but my friend Larry Poole asked, how do you warm up a cold list? He hadn't emailed his list in a long time, several months. And what if I'm doing the same thing? I haven't communicated with them in a while. How do you warm up a cold list?
That's a really good question. And quite honestly, it's going to be a little bit different per person based off of, who that list is, why they signed up with you in the first place, and kind of what your relationship with them is. But assuming it's a cold list, they haven't heard from you in a while, the immediate things that you want to do is, number one, you want to straight up give right off the bat. Because the problem most people make is, after they've had a cold list for a while and they decide, okay, I want to get back into this, the first thing they do is ask. They ask by kind of sending them a product link and, kind of doing this percent off, like, I'm doing this for you type of thing, where it's totally not. It's, oh, I've got this list over here, I could probably send them some stuff and get a few sales. But what I've found is it'll take a few emails to, number one, get folks to even open your stuff, because they haven't been used to hearing from you in a while.
They might even wonder, who the heck is this dude?
Oh, absolutely. I would guess that even regular people on your regular email list sometimes wonder that, because, like, how many email lists are you signed up to? Are we all signed up to? And especially when you're in a beginner's shoes, that's the first thing you do, is you sign up to a whole bunch of email lists, and then you get bombarded with emails, and you try to learn from all these different folks, and it's a little bit overwhelming at first.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's absolutely the case. So the first thing is to send them something of value, and I would send 3, maybe even 4 emails to where you kind of tell a little bit of a story of why you're getting back into this, and and each one of those gives value or links back to something that's going to be super valuable for them, some kind of a free giveaway, not, no kind of hokey offer or anything like that. It's just giving them something that's going to help them out based off of where they are as an audience. And then in kind of the 4, 5, 6 email range, then you can start turning and saying, so here's what we're going to be doing going forward. We're really excited about this, blah, blah, blah. And the goal there is to get some kind of engagement and reaction. So initially it's give them something valuable. And then the next piece is to get some kind of reaction or action. And by that, I mean, every email should end with hit reply and send me your thoughts if you want to hear, or if you have a story to share about X, or hit reply and let me know if you want to get whatever we were talking about in this email. Or here's a link to a video to where, I'm talking about the next steps for the business and how that's going to benefit you. And at the end of it, I ask a very personal question that I would love to hear your answer to in the comments. Like something like that, that's a small action, but that gets them re-engaged. And then kind of after that, then you can kind of go back into a normal kind of engagement type of sequence. But get some kind of a small, minor, itsy bitsy action so that you've got some initial momentum going.
That's perfect. And hopefully, Larry, you agree that that's some fantastic advice, because I love getting emails from, just even responses from people who are, especially if they're on my email list, and they reply and say, hey, I like that. Of course, I love getting emails saying I love this, but just tell me. I had a long 5 or 6 email chain with Amy Robles the other day, or Robles, I think is how I should say that. She responded, and I've had people say, Ellery, when you're doing email, it's like you're really communicating with me. And you can do that when you grab people's first names, and you can't do that on Twitter or on Facebook. You're just so limited. They may not even see it, or, there's so many things. And I can't believe how fast this 45, almost an hour long, has gone, Ben. I've got so many more questions for you. But if someone wanted to reach out to you, thank you for all of the advice, or maybe connect with you and ask some of those questions that they have, where can we send them?
Absolutely. So you can find me at authorityengine.com. There's a nice little about page with all my contact info. So that'll be the easiest place to get a hold of me, learn a little bit more about myself and what we've got going on there. The one tool I wanted to share, I mentioned multiple times the lucrative listener test, and anybody can download that at authorityengine.com/listener. Free tool, have at it. And hopefully that should help you, whether it's a podcast listener or a blog audience member that, or reader that you're looking to target. Really doesn't matter. The concept still applies, so that should help out. But you can find all of my contact information and social profiles and all that silly stuff at authorityengine.com.
And of course, we will put a link to all of that in the show notes. Ben, if you had one final tip or piece of advice that you can give someone who fits this bill that we've been talking about, and they're just about to start, or maybe they're a week away from starting, they got plans for the weekend and they're going to get it all figured out, what's a tip or piece of advice that you can leave them with today?
I really like that question. And this is something that this is actually something that I've been thinking a lot about this very week, is a lot of folks get caught up on minutia because they feel like it's going to make the difference between their it working and it not working, whatever that means. But in order to kind of remove a little bit of that kind of self-made pressure and that self-made, I guess like halting power is exactly what it is. It's more of a defense. It's a defense mechanism. Yeah. What you can do is think about it as a game. You're just playing you're learning this game that has the potential to benefit you a lot in the long run, as well as benefit all those folks that you're able to help out in the long run. But if you think of it as a game, I've found it removes you just enough that you don't feel so personally attached to some of those pieces, like, do I do .net or .com, or do I use this service versus that service, or do I use whatever versus whatever? Like, if I think about things oftentimes from a third party perspective, I'm kind of looking down over my own shoulder and thinking, okay, if I was this player, what would I do in this situation? It's usually pretty clear. And then, then you can kind of fire what a good friend of mine calls her shitty committee, that just like comes in and brings all these questions of doubt and fear. And it makes it very clear, like right off the bat, okay, well, here's what I do. And if you don't know, that's okay. It just means there's a little bit of research to be done.
Awesome. And as someone who just beat the latest Call of Duty game within 24 hours of it coming out, I love thinking things through like a video game.
There you go.
Ben, thank you again. Enjoy Thailand, and thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Hope everybody's got some helpful stuff from this, and have a fantastic day.
Okay, I have a special invitation for you. If you liked this type of podcast, ones that are so packed with information that you should listen when you're driving down the road in your car because you need a pen and paper. If you like this type of episode, I have just created a membership site for all things that I work on, all of the empowering and equipping things that you hear on the podcast, that you read on the blog. I have a membership site. It's kind of in the pre-launch phase as of right now. Today's December the 3rd, 2014. It's going to go full live in January of 2015. So if you're listening to this in the future, it's already live. It's already kicking. There's a great community there being built, and there's some fantastic information there, and tools and templates, things to listen to, things to watch, things to read, things to download so that you can apply them to your business in real time, in real life. Then you are going to want to be a part of this membership site. But here's the deal. If you go to members, with an S, members.ellerywells.com, and you register for a new account, and you sign up using the promo code podcast, just the word podcast, you will get your first month. So you can almost try it. You can think of it like a trial. You can get your first month for $1. That's a freaking steal of a deal. I have people thanking me for offering a product like this so that they can be a part of this, and I want you to be a part of it too. And I'm just really thankful to have followed the journey that I have followed, been connected with people like Ben over the last few years, and learn this kind of information and have the ability to turn that into something that you can be a part of. So go to members.ellerywells.com, register for new account, and then under the discount code, put in the word podcast. That promo code will be good until the internet is no longer the internet. It does not expire. Use the word podcast as your discount code. It will drop that first month to only $1. And with that, I will leave you. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for listening to the Empowered Podcast. I'm your host, Ellery Wells. We'll see you next week.